edition of URP Practical Talk. I'm your host, Pastor Wendell Jeffrey, and we have a packed program for you. And this program might also run into next week's program. We've got a lot to say. In the studio with me today is our leader for the party, Dr. Vishnu Bandu. I feel like calling him the Right Honorable Dr. Vishnu Bandu. And then we have a very interesting person joining us here today in the studio, Mr. Turhane Doerga. And we'll be talking. It's going to be a nice, lively discussion. We're going to be dealing with the leading, one of the leading earners of foreign exchange. We're going to be talking about rice. And then, you know, there's some situations that are happening there in that market. And so without any further ado, let me just welcome the folks here. Doc,
yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine, Pastor.
You're looking good?
Yes,
All your travels. And Dr. Turhane. Thank you, Turhane Doerga. Right. Thank you. Doc, we've got a lot going on here in the rice sector, and if there is, I know that you told us that your doctoral degree is in engineering with a slant towards agriculture. But if there is any person that can be called a doctor of rice, it would be you. That would also be something that you'll be known for. Doc, you're so engrossed with the rice situation in Guyana that when there was a problem under the last administration, you thought that to correct the problem, you should switch your allegiance and in the hopes of bettering the rice industry, switch. You want to talk a little about that why did you appear on the APNU AFC platform? What motivated you to do that?
Well, in a nutshell, we have to start in 1988 when I came to Guyana on advice of the IMF, and I met President Hoyt. We discussed the rice industry, and under the economic recovery program, we drafted a concept of how we can revive the industry. Quickly, everybody was telling the president then that rice couldn't be safe, similar to the sugar situation here. And I answered that question of him, that everybody telling him that all the mills are scrapped, the rice market is dead, and kind of desperation. Then I answered it, and that is just because we had already become one of the world leaders in analyzing developing economies, agroeconomics. And I asked him one question, if people would stop eating rice.
Right.
And well, he gave us the free hand of, and under the IMF, it was compulsory to get the loan to restructure the economy, to privatize the government entities, and rice was one of them. Well, the rest is history. By 1992, rice farmers were calling Mr. Desmond Hoy Desmond Persad, because rice was doing extremely well.
By 98, 90.
By 1992, when the election was there.
Okay, good.
It is my sincere opinion that he lost that election because 6-7 weeks before the election, the rhetoric of the PPP, who couldn't win on issues anymore concerning their main constituency, which was rice farmers. And don't forget, they controlling the RPA. They changed it into race, and successfully. That didn't work this election. But anyway, so when the PPP took over, they wanted to go back to the centralized control system, and we went through a lot of harassment. But we just weather it out until, and we 4 times we did interventions to help the industry back on its feet, because they would do all kind of mischief. The last time was the Venezuela deal, where I published that they stole $8 billion. So I'm yet to see what will come out of the indictments going on.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that our audience is following what you're saying. You're saying that you were part of the restructuring of the rice industry way back in Desmond Hoyt's time.
We were the restructuring.
And you were part of the deal with the IMF to bring around that.
No. The demand of the IMF was for for Guyana to get that, I think was restructuring of
Oh,
all
the
the
ER,
loan.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They had to privatize the government-controlled entities. Sugar was one of them.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it didn't happen. The incoming government would have to do that. I don't know how they convinced the IMF, and it never happened. And the result is clear.
Okay. And so you're saying that after the platform was laid for a divested rice industry, when the PPP came into power, the dynamic shifted back to a state control entity?
That's what they wanted to do, but the mills were already sold. So their concept, in my opinion, is to harass everybody who bought the mills and hopefully to get it back. And don't forget, not all the mills were sold. The best mills, that is Burma, had two brand new Satake rice mill of 10 tons that was kept for government. And as Mr. Hoyt at that time said, was to regulate the local market and to make sure that there's enough rice available.
Okay, so that
for
remained under the
local- yeah.
control of the...
Well, everybody know what happened, that the PPP ran it after they took over. They ran it into the ground. And now it's to be seen, because that's another secret which I hope will come out in the audit
Audits,
report.
okay.
It was rented out for peanuts to an overseas group. And it's a mystery what is really happening there.
Okay. All right. So you came and you weathered 23 years of bad rice management under the PPP. Is that how you would
Yeah,
term it?
the reason, there's a good reason for that. Because of the food shortages in the world, the group decided that we run as we can go, and hopefully it will change, because people will come to their senses. When I retired, I was free. And then I decided to join the APNU platform in the hope to change things.
Well, talk about that, because one of the things that I know of you, and one of the things that you say from time to time, is that you are not a politician. So explain what catapulted your shift to the platform of the APNU AFC.
Well, I have an exceptional bond with Guyana through my mother. My mother is Guyanese, and as my father said, it's the only fight he couldn't win from my mother when it comes to Guyana.
Okay.
So she was very happy and always pushed me to help Guyana. But Guyana is rich by itself. Everybody knows that, and it's my opinion that we should stop talking about our richness and start doing things.
Okay.
And there's no person in Guyana cannot say that we are the people who made the change in the rice industry, and it prospered. When I came in 1988, there was hardly a house with proper paint in West Dam and all over Guyana.
Okay.
And within 2 to 3 years, everything changed. The farmers were prospering. We found markets, because you need to know what you're doing in the rice industry. This is not a child game.
Okay. Now, you're making some very strong claims, and I want you to justify them to our viewing audience. You said in the articles that I have read that you were very instrumental in negotiating the rice for oil deal. Talk a little about that.
It is simple. We were called in when the crisis was there. They couldn't find market, because, as I told you, every time it got to a point, they had revoked our license for no good reason. And as Mr. Siraj and all of them were advocating that I should abandon the mill so they could take it over.
Who are the we that revoked your license?
That is basically the PPP.
Okay.
Mr. Siraj, the group in the PPP who was heading the rice section, which is Ripudawan Prasad, Siraj, I don't know if Ramsamy was involved at that time, Fazal Ali who died, Kennard who died, that group. And they wanted to go back to the situation. And don't forget, the RPA, the Rice Producers Association,
Okay.
which was established by the British in 1936, is fully controlled by the PPP. It's an arm of the PPP, and it should not
Okay.
So that is the stronghold constituency. Don't forget, the RPA was getting 23 years, 2.2 million every month from GRDB. They can't account for it. And as things start to get tighter, Guyanese are educated, they start to ask questions. That's why we had a change in government. We found out that in 2011, the PPP changed the laws in the RPA, in Parliament. We don't know how it passed. They changed it from the auditing being done by an independent auditor
Okay.
by the General Secretary. So in the RPA now, with public funds, with rice farmers' money, Mr. Siraj is auditing Mr. Siraj.
Okay, okay. Now, Doc, you got a lot on your mind.
Unacceptable.
You got a lot on your mind, but I just want, there's so many things that I know you want to say. But what I'm asking again is I want you to explain, because the Carby rice deal, that oil for rice deal was big. And it is
Okay.
something that the PUP took credit for. But you are saying that you were the one that brought the players to the table.
Yeah.
So I'm asking for you to explain to the viewers what was your involvement in that.
Okay, it started with the rice industry was dead again. So we were called by Mr. Robert Pasad, then minister.
And what year are we looking at around this time?
It started 2010, I think.
Okay.
I don't know it exactly.
Okay.
We were called by Mr. Robert Pasad. All the millers were there in a jam-packed boardroom. And Mr. Robert Pasad said everybody has to help to find markets and this and the other. And he's especially referred to me that why we don't help.
Okay.
And I told him what was happening. He, of course, said things have changed and so forth. So I went back. I looked at the whole situation and I say, if we let this thing go down further, it's not going to work. So I called them and I said, I want to do a presentation for you guys how we can fix it. And I went and I suggested to them, because we know the world rice situation,
Okay.
that the market we should look at is Venezuela. So when I said that, I met one Mr. Jinnah Rahman, who at that time claimed that there was a Venezuela-Guyana Friendship Association. So based on that, he visited once with me to the Mr. Murundi, who was the ambassador then.
Okay.
After that, I went umpteen times to Caracas to set it up and so forth. And then I explained to the PPP guys, Mr. Robert Persad and all of them, why it would work.
Okay.
For simple reason that we owed Venezuela. They had a shortage of food. They didn't have money anymore to buy it, and we owe them. And I explained on the Venezuelan side that they would have to wait 20 years for their money. It's better they take it now at a preferential price for us. So they didn't. All that negotiations was done by us.
Okay.
Mr. Jagdeo did an excellent job when he met Mr. Chavez in
Venezuela.
New York at the United
Oh,
Nations.
United Nations there.
And the deal was sealed. That was the last time they called me, when it was fixed.
Okay.
And after that, I have never in my 38 years of career, never seen such massive corruption. I published it. You have a copy of it.
Right. So go ahead,
Let
Doc.
me ask you,
Sorry.
Doc, a question. Going back to the GRDB, they changed the rules in Parliament on the director or the board member. I noticed they have 15 person now on the board. Should it not be 13? How come they do that? Which administration have done that?
Well, if you look at the whole board, is the lame is guiding the blind. That's one. Two, is that board is specifically regulated by law. That the RPA have to have 3 representatives.
Yeah.
The Rice Millers Association has to have 2 representatives, and then you have the consumers and so forth and so forth. Total, exactly as you say, 13. To my astonishment, they changed it and they appointed 15 people, and not according to the rules. They were handpicked by whoever it is in the AFC. and put there.
So what you're saying that it's an illegal
It's
something?
absolutely an illegal board. It's
Oh,
an illegal
What
board.
can we do about this?
Well, what has to happen is that I choose to be silent for a while for a simple reason, because it was Mr. Nagamutu on the platform of the APNU AFC with me, telling the farmers and everybody what we would have done after we won the election. Nothing of the sort happened. In the manifesto, we would establish the agriculture bank. It's not done. We would establish an intervention fund. It is not done. And it is Mr. Granger who said that if you see corruption, you should speak out. Where we are speaking out, the unfortunate thing is nothing is happening. The corruption continues.
So why did you decide to leave the AFC APNU platform?
Well, I don't know if you would call it leaving it. I asked myself if we were ever on it, because today, people like myself, our conclusion is that we have been properly used by these guys to get into power. Because my phone stopped ringing the day after election. You understand? That 4,700 vote is no AFC votes. It's rice farmers' votes. And that is why I know that this combination of the coalition can never make it back. Never make it. Not with what they're doing with the agriculture sector at this moment.
You talk about a series of corruptive behavior that obtained under the last administration. You talked of the $8 billion that went missing, and that you said you hope that the audits that are now being done, especially the one for the GRDB, would find that money and find the people responsible for taking that money. What has been happening with those audit reports in your view?
I'm following it. When it took such a long time to be presented, I started to agitate. I started to ask questions. Then suddenly I was told that Mr. Nigel Hines, who was the auditor, now through the government had recruited a special auditor of KPMG from London. So suddenly the report was presented, and it was about 1.5 feet stack of paper. And what I understood from Mr. Jaipal Sharma, he said every page was a fraud, so he sent it immediately to the police and to SOCU.
Okay.
What I'm kind of shocked of is that what these guys are in the first instance be indicted for is peanuts on what it is. It's very simple, and I want to repeat it very careful what I am looking at.
Okay.
You see, corruption is also when it's done legally right, but morally unacceptable. And I will
Okay.
tell you why in
Okay.
this case it's legally also unacceptable. Because GRDB acted as a broker in the Venezuela deal. Okay.
Okay.
Because they needed one regulatory body to handle it, because it was a government-to-government deal. Now, what they did, the money, except that the social fund, that money went to the office of the president. Nobody is accounting for it. They charge for trips to Venezuela, 10,000 US a trip, to the tune of 250,000 US. It was a big fiesta. But where the money went is the average freight to Venezuela is between $28 to $34 a ton. And they were charging the millers, please pay attention.
I'm
They
listening.
were charging the millers between $64 and $68. That comes
So they
from
were
the farmers.
doubling. Mhm.
Right. We done about, say, between about 750,000 tons. So they stole there with brokers, and we know exactly how those brokers are, because they're still here. They stole about $8 billion. That is the one I'm looking for.
Okay.
But apparently, and I'm waiting for the court cases, because they now found the accountant who was hiding in Canada.
Mhm.
I hope when he's back they will find out, because the documents seemingly have disappeared in GRDB.
Okay.
You understand? So there's a lot of criminality going on. And that is why it hurts me to see that people are being jailed 3 years for 20 grams of ganja, while these guys still walk free on bail. Now, I want to add one thing to it,
Okay.
that this type of money made. I've seen how they indicted the president of Sri Lanka, who had $5 billion in Dubai, stolen money from the taxpayers.
Yeah.
It is very simple here. When you look at the assets these guys have, through the tax system, you have to ask them, where did you get the
Good.
money from?
Again, Mr. Doerga, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to
So,
that.
in a nutshell, the answer to your question, this GRDB thing and this fraud, I'm following it because I published that document with my name underneath it. Nobody sued me. Nobody did nothing because it's the gospel truth.
They know you're speaking the truth.
Do we have the will to correct
and
it?
that is the question I'm going to ask you now. Under the last administration, you were able to put your thumb on corruption, and you knew where the corruption was, who were responsible for it, and so on. You stand on the platform, you stood on the platform of the current administration while they were politicking, and they made some promises to you, promises of transparency and reduced corruption, and so on. And now you are saying that even though the corruption took place under the last administration, there seems to be some facilitating of the corruptors or the crooks. What do you think is happening? Is it a money game? Is it that you haven't really, you didn't change, you exchange one political ideology for a similar one? What do you think is driving the reluctance to prosecute these people?
It is simple. When you look at what the AFC, which got agriculture, is, those are descendants from the PPP. They came from the same school of Stalin.
Say that again. I want the viewers to hear.
When you look at Nagamutu, Ramjatan, and so forth, they were educated in the PPP. The PPP, from what I researched for myself, was driven by what they would call communism. That, I think that's a farce, that's not true. They were driven by the Stalinist thing, that's a different thing.
Okay.
When you want to look at how communism worked, you have to look at China.
Okay.
What they had here is Stalinism, which is basically a slick form of fascism, that a few people are the bosses and everybody else is just servants. So these guys like Nagamutu and so are descendants from there. They haven't changed, I can tell you, from what they were preaching before the election and what they're doing now is a disgrace. You understand? So corruption in the rice industry continues. The same Miller's cartel continues running the GRDB with a new set of people who want to make money. So what is driving it? Money. Corruption is driving it. Early in the control of this new government, they tried to do the first crooked deal that was to monopolize the Jamaican market. I agitated and I explained to them, except that it is corrupt, it wouldn't work, and it failed. The same Mr. Hassan is now indicted for another fraud. You understand? Mm-hmm. And he is put on leave. When I hear they put on leave, Mr. Jarvis, the permanent secretary, it took this government 2 years to send him on leave. Two things there. Didn't they know? They know because I was saying it on the platform where Mr. Nagamutu was sitting, that it was Mr. Jarvis who was writing the checks.
Not the PS.
That the PS. A week before the election, giving millers advances to the tune of $400-500 million to pay farmers because the millers were not paying the farmers in exchange for votes because the PPP was helping them. The same Mr. Jarvis. He was issuing the checks. It took them 2 years to send him. And you know what is hurtful? These guys are relaxing home with their full salary, with all the amenities and so forth, and the taxpayer is paying. And the corruption continues. The cartel controls everything. The Mexico market is such a joke.
We're going to get to that just now. Doc, you wanted to ask a question?
Yes. Doc, I am very, very pleased and happy that you come on the, you come on this program here and explain about the rights industry, because as we had several discussions, many days, talking about the rice industry, how to develop our present industry in Guyana. Also, we have additional agricultural industry to come up. You know, they got a saying, they said, if good men do nothing, evil will prevail. You know, and I consider you as a good man, and I respect you highly, and I know that you have very good intention, and I am happy that you had able to come on the URP platform. But I would like to also to ask you, what you feel. I know you think that the URP is the future for Guyana. So I would like you to, you know, explain a little how you examine the URP and why you are on the URP platform right now and joining hands with the URP.
Well, it's based on analysis. Before I joined the APNU and I offered my help, it was based on an analysis that Guyana has changed, because I come and go in Guyana for 23 years now. No, for 25 years now. My conclusion then was that the APNU, as it was with the AFC, could never win the election, because my conclusion after a survey we did, and we are in marketing, is what we do.
Yeah.
We analyze market, and for me, election campaign has a lot to do with marketing the campaign. So they in the APNU, AFC, in my opinion, 30% would be what we call grassroots PNC, and 30% would be grassroots PPP.
Okay.
The AFC joining the APNU, for me, would have no effect, because they were seen as the third force. They got, I think, 5 seats, establishing that there was a section of the Guyana population
that was
which was
flexible.
on the fence.
Mhm.
They wanted Guyana to progress.
Mhm.
So them joining there, they come in the atmosphere of the PNC, and today they are PNC. So what is happening now is that 30% of the population on our polls show that these are educated Guyanese across all political lines, across all religious lines, across all,
Ethnic.
most of our racial lines. And it showed that the PPP would win for one simple reason, because the rice industry is their constituency. So my conclusion was, unless you educate the rice farmers of what really happened with the rice industry to go down, and that the PPP is responsible for it, you won't have that little bit of votes. And I hate to say it, but I was the only man right. While everybody in the APNU AFC platform would say we would win with a landslide, I said that we were losing the Indian votes, which the AFC would bring. So we need to educate the rice farmers what happened, and thank God we got enough to win. So what I'm saying today is that Guyana will not be different than the rest of the world. Look at Venezuela, look at Brazil, look at what happened in Panama. These so-called grassroots parties will be diminished in time, because Guyana is educated, race, especially for the youths, and I want to emphasize on the youth. In the AFC, in the APNU AFC, we emphasize on the youth. We even had youth rallies that we would work for the youth. Should I say more about what this government is about? If you look at who is running this country, youths are forgotten. So URP, I think, is one of the parties. I read your manifesto. I think URP is one of the new parties, as I support RISE, R-I-S-E. No one wants to make a change in constitution. My opinion is they will have to join a political party or become a political party, because these chaps ain't gonna change the constitution. They're comfortable, they set for life, they don't care about anybody. So that's what it is. So my compliments to you for seeing, because I'm on the ground and I see how you're working with the people and coming up and telling them we need yet another change. We got an exchange this time.
And with that, we completely out of time. But folks, thanks for joining us. We're going to continue this discussion again next week. So please, you hear what's happening, the URP Practical Talk, same program, same time on this same station. Join us next week. Until then, God bless you real good. We'll continue the conversation. God bless you and God bless Guyana. Thank you for tuning in tonight.